In this video, I'm going to cover what I've been working on for the last 3 months. And that's basically a process to get my CAD models exported in a way that makes it easier to do a manual retopolization on it. And the reason for this is, normally you don't have to do a retopo on your models in order to render them and make them look nice and everything else. But I have some specific needs that I have to turn this into a subdivision surface model. So because of that, I needed to find a way to do it that was consistent and basically took a lot of the thought process out of what you have to do in order to get your model as a subdivision surface. I've tried all the automatic methods. All of them basically do not give me good enough results. And there's a whole lot of cleanup and there's just no point. I might as well just do it manually. So for now, anyhow, I want to cover that, and I'm going to cover it in Fusion. I'll also cover it in plasticity later. But for right now, we just want to take a look at our CAD model. So here I have a model, and ultimately what I'm wanting to do is I want to keep this surface quality for my reflections and everything else. And the other thing I want to do is make sure that all my textures line up across the seams. No normal map errors, stuff like that. So basically what I found, if we look here in Blender, this is the model or a model that's similar to the one that's in Fusion that's been retopologized. So if I turn off the wireframes, you can see that my reflections, there's no waviness to them or anything like that. The other thing that you can see is that there's no seams. So basically that's the kind of result that we're trying to achieve. So let's take a look at that. So the first step that I found is looking at our CAD model. We need to know like what we're going to be doing with each one of the pieces. One thing that's really nice about CAD is typically all of your faces in CAD are basically four-sided. And even the ones that aren't four-sided like this one, technically it is a four-sided NURBS. It's just been trimmed at the corner, this corner and this corner. So we have to keep that in mind. But it makes it really easy when we're doing retopologization because we already know that this is just going to be a quad that's split up. This is going to be a quad. It just continues on. And I'll show that in a later video. But for right now, what we want to look at is how to export settings. So use export settings and get the best result we can for this. So if we go up here to the make and then say export, we select our model and we go to preview. And the first thing I want to do is I want to set this to high just so that we can look at the model. Now, this is typically how you would export a model to do a retopologization. The problem is it's too dense. And when we try to use these lines as guides, it's just going to be a mess to work with. And that's not what we want. The point is later on, we're going to recapture all this detail on our low resolution mesh and make it match up again. So we don't need to have this high of a resolution mesh when we export. Now, if you were just trying to render it and you wanted to export it, I still wouldn't go this high, but you'd want to use a higher model and then decimate it. The problem with that is when you start doing your UV maps and stuff like that, you don't have very consistent seams and you don't have a lot of control. It can be done for sure with triplanar mapping and things like that. But for my use case, I need even triplanar mapping won't work because it comes from this direction, you end up with seams. And even if you blend the seams, then for things like carbon fiber or something that has a pattern, it won't line up. So that just won't work. So anyhow, back to what I was saying, if we want to get all these surfaces to be basically friendly for us to be doing our retopologization. So the first thing we want to do in Fusion is we want to set this to low. Now you're going to notice it's a lot more manageable. It's a lot easier to see what's going on. And essentially on things like these little caps and that, you're looking for how many faces basically curve around these edges. Because what we want to do is we want to use, there's basically going to be 3 lines, the outside, the inside, and the middle. And then it's going to be split up. So we want to make sure that we have something that works well for that. So looking at our basic settings, we don't have to really do anything with surface deviation. I usually just leave that as it is. And then we have normal deviation, which is set to 30 degrees. If we set that to 25, now we can see that basically what we have is we have a center line, an inside and outside, and that's exactly what we're looking for. And this setting, it's pretty accurate like all the time, no matter what size model you have. Really what you want to zoom in on is your small fillets, anything, your smallest fillets that you have in your model. And you basically want to try to get where one patch meets another. You want to try to get this to where there's 4 faces there. So that's going to work out pretty good. Same thing here. We have our 4 faces. So that's going to give us a really good start. This will all work out nicely. There's 4 there. So that's basically what we're looking for. The other setting is the maximum edge length. You got to kind of play with this one depending on the size of your model. But I have found that basically like 90% of the models that I've run through it, even small to large, basically what I'm looking at, since I work in inches, I'm looking to set this to 1/4 inch. So 0.25. If you're working in millimeters, just set it to 6 millimeters. And you should be good to go. You might have to play with it a little bit, but for the most part, you use those settings almost continuously. Now, this model is going to be really easy to retopologize. And we will, in a later video, we'll take a look at that. But basically, that's what you want to do. This is the kind of model you want. And I'll show you the other steps in order to get your surface quality and all your accuracy back in later videos. Thanks for watching, and if you like this, please hit the like and subscribe. Leave comments if you have any. I'll try to answer them. Thanks for watching.